ॐ ॐ ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम् ॐ श्री चिन्मय सद्गुरवे नमः. Hari Om. So yesterday in the last verse, we saw how that individual jiva contemplating on the Brahman, like the pupa which contemplates on the wasp, finally becomes the wasp, shedding its nature of being like a worm, and it becomes a flying wasp. In the same way, the one who contemplates on the Brahman ultimately becomes that Brahman. And what is the role of meditation is being described. The 361st verse, Ativa Sukshmam Paramatma Tattvam Nasthula Drishtya Pratipattum Arhati Samadhinatyanta Susukshma Vritya Jnatavyamaryerati Shuddha Buddhibhihi Aryaihi Ati Shuddha Buddhibhihi. Jnatavyam, that supreme self, should be known by the Arya. Arya means a noble person. It doesn't mean people from north of India and all that, all these historical politics of Arya, Dravida. It is not that Arya. This Arya is noble person, a person who has got a very good mind. Ati Shuddha Buddhibhihi. How should such a person know that truth? Ati Shuddha, extremely pure, where there are no malas. Malas or impurity of mind, which are everything from kama, desire, anger, hatred, jealousy, and all the gross impurities of mind are not there. The subtle impurities in the form of vasanas, or the disturbances and agitations of mind, are gone. Such a person with such a mind, Ativa Sukshmam Paramatma Tattvam, that supreme self, that essence, is very, very, very subtle. Ativa, extremely subtle. So to know that, it is not possible with a very gross mind. Nasthula Drishtya Pratipattum Arhati. Gross mind is the world of objects which we perceive through our five sense organs. It is not possible to realize that Brahman, or see that Brahman, or experience that Brahman with a gross mind. How is it possible then? If something can't be experienced, then we will give up the whole idea of thinking about this in the first place. But there is a way. Samadhina atyanta susukshma vritya. Shuchi Paishunye is the dhatu for the word sukshma. Sukshma means very, very, very tiny, very, very, very small. Vritti means thought. Sukshma vritti means very extremely subtle thought in the state of samadhi. Samadhina ati anta, atyanta, extremely, completely subtle vritti, thought. With that thought, jnatavyam aryaihi, the noble person who is a sadhaka, who is a mumukshu, can try to know. Shuddha Buddhibihi, through his pure intellect. The next verse, 362. Yatha suvarnam putapakashodhitam tyaktva malam swatmagunam samrichati तथा मनस्सत्व रजस्तमोमलं ध्यानेन संत्यज्य समेति तत्वम यथा suvarnam, just as gold, which is mined as an ore from the ground, from the depths of the earth, puta paka shodhitam, it is mixed with many other metals in the formation of gold. Many other metals are mixed with it. There's a lot of impurities in that. What is it? What do they do with the gold? They put it in hot fire and heat that gold, and everything melts, and gold alone gathers together. Tyaktva malam swatma gunam samrichati. The gold gives up all its impurities and attains its own true shining self. Swatma gunam, its own properties alone are left in the gold. Tatha manaha, in the same way, manaha, the mind, when in meditation, dhyanena, while meditating, the mind gives up the three qualities. The first, the two qualities go away when rajas, the agitations of mind, are not there, and tamas, the impurities of mind, are given up. Then what happens? Only sattva guna is left. Sattva guna has no existence without rajas and tamas. Only for the sake of rajas and tamas, only because of rajas and tamas, sattva guna exists. And once when rajas is not there, the agitations of mind are not there, the vasanas or the malas, the impurities of mind are gone, then sattva guna merges with that consciousness. Dhyanena samtyajya, everything is dropped. Sameti tattvam, that sattva guna also merges with that essence or consciousness, and there is a condition of no mind. Nirantarabhyasavashat taditham pakvam mano brahmani liyate yadam tada samadhi savikalpavarjitah swatodvayanandarasanu bhavakah. Nirantara abhyasa. How do we get to this state of mind? By nirantara, all the time. Dirghakala, Patanjali Maharishi says, what is abhyasa? Dirghakala nairantarya. Nirantara means continuous, day in and day out, all the 365 days a year, and continuously until we are absorbed in that state of realization, we continue the practice. Abhyasa. What practice? Dhyana abhyasa, the practice of meditation. Dhyana vashat ittam. When the mind comes under the control of meditation, the mind becomes so pure, as mentioned in the previous verse. Pakvam manaha. That pakvam, the mind has, actually it has been cooked well in meditation. Meditation is a fire. Gurudev says many times, in the white heat of meditation, the mind is cooked. When the mind is cooked in that fire of meditation, there is only sattva guna left, and that sattva guna merges with Brahman. It is like when there are many things to many people in the house and many other things to pay attention to. We are engaged with the world, we are engaged with the duties at home, but when everybody leaves and there is nothing as such to do in the house, that individual just retires to one room and continues to stay there even throughout the day. If there's no need to go out, no need to interact, they just stay in that one room and go ahead with their life. In the same way, when there is no rajas, when there is no tamas, The mind resolves itself into that Brahman. Brahmani liyate yada, when that mind gets absorbed in the Brahman, tada samadhihi savikalpa varjitaha. That state is called nirvikalpa samadhi. Nirvikalpa means there is no doubt, there is no other thought that arises, there is no desire. Savikalpa samadhi means we are quietening the mind into some object. It can be a book, it can be some work, it can be some divine form, or it can be engaging in some good action where the mind is completely absorbed in one thing. That is called Savikalpa Samadhi. Usually, the divinity that we worship, the Ishvara or Omkara, or even contemplating on the Upanishads, the Vedas, or doing something, the mind is absorbed in that, it is called Savikalpa. When there is no thought, there is no question, then it becomes Nirvikalpa. There is no thought in which the mind is absorbed. The mind is absorbed in the self. That is Nirvikalpa Samadhi. Swataha, that mind by itself, Advaya Ananda Rasa Anubhavakaha. That mind continuously experiences the non-dual joy. Non-dual joy means the bliss is already there within, but when there is some distraction, we take our mind away from that inner bliss, which we actually experience in the state of sleep. In the same way, in the waking state also we can experience, but in the sleep, when we go to sleep at maybe 10 in the night, and after that, there is the experience of one thought called no thought. And since we are in that experience, that one thought is also no thought, so we are in that experience of no thought. We don't have any other distracting experiences. So we are going on living in that bliss of that joy which is present within, the bliss of that truth, the bliss of that reality which is present. And so we feel very fresh in the morning when we wake up. But unfortunately, in the waking state, we experience so many thoughts, so many emotions, we engage in so many actions, we engage in so many activities of the sense organs, so many details around us that we pay attention to, that the mind is withdrawn from its original nature of happiness. So when the mind gets absorbed in that, there is nothing other than that to give a different experience. So it becomes Advaya Ananda. Rasa. Rasa means a juice. The juice within, the joy within. The science is getting very close to describing what is the nature of joy. When all these ductless glands, because of the chemical reactions in the body caused by our thoughts, actions, and many, many other experiences that we have, the chemicals which are secreted within in different ductless glands in the body, whatever we experience, we may not know what is happening inside, but the mind is experiencing all the different movements of the liquids in the physical body, and the mind has the experience of joy or bliss or anger because of the modifications of the different juices in the body. So Swataha Advaya Ananda Rasa, this juice or rasa of joy within, there are so many hormones inside, such as dopamine, serotonin, endorphin, and oxytocin. These are all the hormones that make us experience joy. Oxytocin is a hormone that is secreted when we meet with people we love, members of our family, or members of our friends, our relatives, and co-workers, colleagues whom we all really like very much. When we meet and when we serve others, when we help others, In a satsanga, there is secretion of oxytocin. In a satsanga, we are all gathering together. We feel very warm, especially I've attended satsangas in the Himalayas. It is a really very beautiful experience when the mountains are very still, the silence is all around. The weather is very cold. Sometimes it's snowing in cold weather. And all of us who are all there present in satsangas are all covered with shawls and headscarves and mufflers, keeping our feet and hands warm. And then there's a lamp burning in the satsang hall, and everybody gathers together in the silence to chant, to pray, and meditate and study Bhagavad Gita. That experience is such a warming experience. It's a heart-warming experience. So these kind of different experiences happen only when we work towards giving those experiences. But this Advaya Ananda Rasa, just by the presence of this consciousness, the secretion is happening within, and the mind experiences that as joy, anubhavakaha. Such a pure mind continuously experiences this joy at all times. So, what does Gurudev, Puja Gurudev, Swami Chinmayananda ji says? Therefore, meditate, meditate, meditate. For so many reasons have been given. All the impurities of mind are gone. The distractions of mind are quietened. The mind gets absorbed in the self as a result of meditation. So what should we do? Meditate, meditate, meditate. He is reiterating what Bhagavan Sri Adisankaracharya also says, not in this verse, but in the next two verses. He talks about the importance of meditation, which is supposed to be our prime occupation in life. Samadhinanena samasta vasanam granther vinasho khila karma nashaham antar bahis sarvata eva sarvadam swarupa vispurtir ayatna tasyat. Samadhina anena samasta vasana. The Yoga Sutra says the dhatu for samadhi is yuj samadhau. The word yoga itself means samadhi or absorption of mind in the self. Samadhina anena, by this samadhi, samasta vasana grantehe vinashaha. All the vasanas or all the impressions that are stored in us, impressions of past experiences, impressions of our sorrows, impressions of our actions, what we have done in the past, good actions and bad actions, impressions of what we have been listening all around us, impressions of all our irritations, our qualities like jealousy, anxiety, greed, and all the results that it has brought to us. All those impressions just keep dropping away with meditation. Just like when you cannot give the example of heating, but we can give the example of heating the water and decanting that water and running that water through a thin sieve where all the impurities are removed. So this is a whole process of meditation. Samasta vasana granthehe vinashaha. The vasanas or the impressions in the mind or in the form of knots and holes in the mind. Repetitive thought patterns that make us think, act, desire, and do the same thing again and again, produce the same result. Do, experience, repeat. Do, experience, repeat. This is the nature of vasana. The more we meditate, the more these vasanas drop. So we will do actions not for the sake of some desire or not for the sake of some compulsion. We will do actions like how nature is existing every day, like how the sun is shining fresh and new every day. It is not shining because of past vasanas. It is just shining. The morning dew is so fresh. The morning blue sky is so fresh. Even though every day the sky is being seen, and even though every day the sun is shining, even though every day the leaves are all coming out, new leaves are coming, grasses growing, fresh grass is growing, flowers are blooming, nothing is old, nothing is taken up from the old state. Everything is so fresh and new. That is the state of our expression when there are no vasanas. Samasta vasana grantehe vinashaha. Akila, when vasanas are gone, akila karma nashaha. All our desires to do selfish actions to gain some joy or some happiness from the world, all that will get destroyed. We become very quiet, we become very peaceful people with no desire for doing any, not, it is not action, a desire for actionlessness, but desire for doing any compulsive actions. Obsessive compulsive disorders will drop with meditation. Karma nashaha. Antarbahihi sarvata eva sarvada. Antaha means within, bahihi sarvata, in all times, in all places, in all directions in space, sarvada, at all times, swarupa vispurtihi ayatnataha syat. When this meditation happens, deep meditation happens for a long period of time, all the vasanas drop by themselves, the mind becomes pure, and within and without, in all spaces and at all times, the individual mind, Swarupa Vispurtihi, is experiencing that the shining awareness, presence of the shining awareness. How? With no effort at all. Ayatnataha syat. Without any effort. Yatnam means effort. Ayatnam means no effort. Swarupa Vispurtihi happens. The individual light of consciousness, which is the same in everyone and in everything, is experienced by the mind in that state of meditation. Verse 365. Shrute shatagunam vidyan mananam mananadapi nididhyasam lakshagunam anantam nirvikalpakam. Shrutehe shatagunam vidyat. It is vidyat mananam. Mananam means reflection, taking a thought. For example, from this Vivekachoodamani, we take up that one verse, Jati Niti Kula Gotra Duragam Nama Rupa Guna Dosha Varjitam Desha Kala Vishaya Tivartiyat Brahma Tattvamasi Bhavayatmani. Meditate upon that Brahma Tattvam, which is beyond all these concepts of whatever we studied in that verse. So taking up one verse and meditating upon that verse, reflecting upon the meaning of that verse is called Mananam. And this Mananam is 100 times better than Shravanam. Shravanam is listening. Shravanam is good. Shravanam is required. Until we are able to establish ourselves in Mananam and Nididhyasanam, we have to continuously do Shravanam of the Upanishads, Shravanam of the Prakarana Granthas. This is called Vedanta, Shravana, Sadhana, Yagna. What we are doing now on this YouTube is Shravana Sadhana, the practice of listening to Vedanta. Shrutehe Shatagunam. Shrutehe means listening. More than that, Mananam. And more than Mananam, Mananadapi Nididhyasanam Lakshagunam Anantam. This is 100 folds better. Mananam is 100 folds better than listening. While Nididhyasanam is a lakh times better than mananam. Nididhyasanam means even in mananam also there is some activity. The mind is rotating with one thought. The mind is playing with one thought. The mind is analyzing the thought from many directions. That is called mananam. And that is also an agitation. That is also an action of the mind. Nididhyasanam, there is absolutely no action. The mind drops everything and it rests quietly in that state of meditation. Just sitting quietly, we have listened to everything, we have contemplated on everything. Now there is nothing to do, there is nowhere to go. The mind becomes still, focusing on the breath, inhaling deeply, exhaling completely a couple of times. Inhale, exhale. Listen to all the sounds around, paying attention to the different sounds of the fan, of the vehicle horn, of the air conditioner, of the fan. Know that I am the observer of the sound. The mind is different from the object of sound observed. Then bring the attention slowly to the breath, something that is very gross for us to hold on to. The breath is something gross, which means something that can be touched and felt and experienced. With the help of the mind, observe the breathing, not trying to breathe deeply or exhaling from the bottom of the stomach and all that, but just observe the breath going in and coming out. This is nididhyasanam, the process to meditation. The breath goes in through the nostrils, it touches a point in the lungs, we don't feel beyond that, and then the breath comes out. Watching the breath for some time, the mind becomes very quiet, and as it quietens down, the most grossest aspect of prana, or the energy, vital force within, is a breath. The most subtle aspect of prana is the mind. Take the mind to the different thoughts that happen. A thought is nothing but a modification of consciousness. Consciousness plus a sense object, whether it is a sound, whether it is a form, whether it is a smell, whether it is a taste, whether it is touch, whether it is a intellectual thought, thinking, planning, a thought form, or whether it is an experience of what we have gone through. All these thoughts can come and go. Observe the thoughts as a witness. Slowly bring the attention away from the thoughts. The thoughts also come and go. The feelings also come and go. I am not the thought. I am not the feeling. I am the observer of the thought. The mind becomes even more quiet and subtle at this stage when we allow the thoughts to go without holding on to them, without thinking into them, without getting into the thought. and suffering the thought or enjoying the thought. Just observe the thought. The thought just melts like dewdrops in snow, dewdrops in the sunlight. Thoughts evaporate and they go away. Even when the thoughts are gone, after the thoughts are gone, and the gap between two thoughts is becoming wider and wider with constant meditation. That gap helps the mind to be filled with just space and no thoughts. That increasing gap is a thought that controls other thoughts. Over a period of time, thoughts don't rise, thoughts don't come. In such a state, the mind gets absorbed in the I, the individual consciousness called the ego, and the I also, with nothing to identify itself with, the I merges into that supreme consciousness in the state of nirvikalpa samadhi, absorption of mind where there are no thoughts. So in this deep state of meditation, nididhyasan, this is meditation. Nididhyasam lakshagunam anantam nirvikalpakam. There are no thoughts. This nididhyasana is 1,000,000,000 times better than even mananam. The next verse, 366, nirvikalpa samadhina sputam brahma tattvam avagamyate dhruvam. Sorry, the tune was off. Nirvikalpa samadhina sputam brahma tattvam avagamyate dhruvam nanyatha chalataya manogate pratyayantara vimishritam bhavet. By this nirvikalpa samadhi, which we just went through the process very briefly, nirvikalpa samadhina sputam. Clearly, by this nirvikalpa samadhi, samadhi means samyak adhiyate manaha, nirvikalpa means no modification. Just that single pointed focus of the mind, absorption into the self. No other thought or action is happening. Because of such a samadhi, Brahma Tattvam avagamyate dhruvam. The Brahma Tattvam or the essence of I is understood by this samadhi, dhruvam, certainly. Na anyatha chalataya manogatehe. It is not by other means, by going here and there, going for kshetratanam. All the activities that we do as sadhanas definitely will purify our mind, but they will not make us realize the truth. Na anyatha chalataya manogatehi. Not by moving the mind in some direction or the other. Pratyayantara vimishritam bhavet. When the mind is moving, it becomes enmeshed with different thought forms, and it starts functioning in the world of names, forms, objects, and situations, desiring and increasing the number of vasanas. So pratyayantara vimishritam bhavet. The mind will get mixed up if it moves in different thought patterns. So this meditation and the realization of the self can happen in that absorbed state of mind. Very beautiful verses. Finally, the onus of self-realization is falling on meditation. Atas samadhatsva yatendriya sanna nirantaram shantamanav pratichi vidhvamsaya dvantamanadya vidyaya kritam sadekatva vilokanena atas samadhatsva. Sama adhatsva. Ataha, therefore, sam adhatsva. Bring the mind yatendriya sanna. With all the senses controlled, bring the mind nirantaram shantamanaha pratichi. Nirantaram, for a long period of time, make the mind quiet. Pratichi. By realizing ever drown the mind in the subjective supreme self. And vidhvamsaya dvanta anadi avidyaya avidyaya kritam sadekatva vidhvamsaya. Destroy that darkness which has got no beginning. Since when is this darkness there? This darkness has been anadi. From time immemorial, this darkness has been there. Anadi avidyaya kritam vidhvamsaya. Just destroy this darkness by absorbing the mind. And what to do? Anadiya kritam sad ekatva vilokanena. By meditating on that self, sat, ekatvam, that existence which is everywhere, in all places and at all periods of time. When the mind is just looking at that existence, all the ignorance is gone. The ignorance of so many lifetimes and beginningless ignorance of the mind. Ignorance of I don't know who I am is gone. The only way of knowing who I am is to know who I am by looking at that self. I am that self. When I look at that self, I know who I am. If I don't look at that self, I will never know who I am. So this is a process of meditation and self-realization. Ataha samadhatsva. Therefore, always go into the state of samadhi. Be in the state of absorbed mind is what Bhagavan Adisankaracharya is telling us. And to go into the state of samadhi, what are the practices we can do? Very beautiful verse. Yogasya prathamam dwaram vangnirodho aparigraha nirasha cha niriha cha nityam ekanta shilata. Yogasya prathamam dwaram. Yoga means samadhi. Yuj samadhav is the dhatu for the word yoga. For achieving that samadhi, prathamam dwaram, the first entry gate. What is that entry gate? Vang nirodho, closing the mouth, not talking, observing mauna, being quiet, taking a pause all the time before we want to react to something, before we want to get excited about something and proceed to do something, taking a pause, being quiet, observing, and then quietly doing the work when we have to engage in the world. If there's nothing else to do, not keep ourselves occupied fully by doing something or the other, but observing the mind in that state of samadhi by keeping silent. If we don't have any important work to do, We will take up the mobile phone. We will either watch many channels on YouTube or Netflix and other things, and we will talk to our friends. We will be engaged in Twitter, WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram, giving posts, putting posts, waiting for likes, and worrying if no likes are coming. We will spend so much of time on social media. All these things we do. Everything, curtail everything. Yogasya prathamam dwaram maunam. Just withdraw from everything, be quiet. Vang nirodha. Vang nirodha is controlling the speech. And then aparigraha, not holding on to many objects. It is a very important practice for people on this path of meditation and spirituality to reduce the objects they have around them, the clothes, the books, the magazines, the newspapers, the papers, the notebooks, the equipment, the miscellaneous items, the different gadgets, small ones, big ones, broken ones. At least as a first step, we can remove all those objects that don't really serve us. We keep so many of them in our cupboards, in our email inboxes, in our WhatsApp, in our Facebook. Everywhere it is filled with junk, and also in our house, physical junk which collects dust and which is very unappealing to even look at. We keep everything, we shove it behind the cupboards. It is a very beautiful exercise to bring them all out. Give yourself some time for that work. Aparigraha is a very important thing, because as long as there are objects, too many objects outside, irrelevant objects around us, the mind is always having its attention on those objects, and the mind is not available for contemplation. When we have only necessary objects and they are being paid attention to every day, kept very clean, neat, and tidy, then the mind completely withdraws from the surroundings. The mind is completely available for contemplation and meditation. So, aparigraha, vam nirodha, and then nirasha. The mind also gets disturbed by expectations of the future. Asha means hopes. I wish this happens. I hope this happens. I expect this to happen. I want this to happen. All these are future tense thoughts. And whether it is future or past or present, everything is only tense. It is future tense, present tense, and past tense. When it is tense, there is tension. Nirasha. Cha. Niriha cha. Niriha means freedom from activity, desire filled activities. I want this, I want that, and because of that, I do certain things. I want to eat this, so I go to the kitchen to cook that, or I go to the shop to buy that, or I take the mobile phone to order it through Swiggy or Zomato. And Niriha, always entering into some activity or the other, withdrawing from all activities. Nityam ekanta shilata. All the activities that we need to do, we can focus our attention and do it as karma yoga. But other than the karma yoga activities, if nothing else comes for us to do, which is necessary for either ourselves or the people around us, then the mind can be just focused in meditation. Nityam ekanta shilata. To do all this, it is very important that we learn to stay alone. We may be in company, but it is very important for a mumukshu to stay with his own thoughts and be with that own contemplation and sadhana, even in a group, not letting the mind be disturbed. एकान्तस्थितिरिन्द्रियोपरमणे हेतुर्द्रुमश्चेतसः संरोधे करणं शमेन विलयं यायादहं वासना तेनानन्दरसानुभूतिर् अचला ब्राह्मी सदा योगिनः तस्मात् चित्तनिरोध एव satatam karya prayatnan munehe. So Bhagwan Sri Adisankaracharya says the only work that we need to do, tasmat, therefore, chitta nirodha eva satatam karyaha. Satatam, at all times, what we need to do is chitta nirodha. Patanjali Yoga Sutra says, Yogaha Chitta Vritti Nirodhaha. The movement of the chitta. The vrittis are different types of thought forms. Like Pramana Vritti means the objects that we see, hear, taste, smell, touch, and the objects that we infer, the thoughts that we infer, the books that we read, objects got by reading, all those are thoughts. Nirodha means stopping them, not letting the influx of thoughts to come. And then Viparyaya means erroneous thinking. Vikalpa means imaginative thinking, opposite of Sankalpa. Many, many thoughts which are just because we have heard something, we keep imagining around those thoughts, and we create new thoughts like the horns of a rabbit or sky flowers. All these are vikalpa. Nidra is zero thought, no thought to hold on to. Smriti is memory thoughts. All these are vrittis or movements. But here, Bhagavan Adi Shankaracharya says, Chitta Nirodha Eva. Stop the mind itself. When the moving thoughts are stopped, when there is no rajas, when there is no tamas, impurities are gone, tamas is gone, agitations are stopped, rajas is not there, then only sattva guna becomes a nirodha chitta, niruddha chitta. It becomes a absorbed mind, quiet mind. Eva satatam karyaha. How should we do? Prayatnat munehe. Muni is the mananashilavan. One who is contemplating all the time is a muni. He has to do this quietening of the mind with great efforts. Ekanta sthitihi indriyoparamane hetuhu dhrumaschetasaha. Living in solitude, ekan aratir janasamsadi, says the Bhagavad Gita, not having any attachment to be in groups of people. Ekanta sthitihi, being alone. It is not being lonely. When we are alone and we are miserable about it, then it is not aloneness, but it is loneliness. But when we are in a crowd and we feel very quiet and calm by ourselves, then even though we may be in a crowd, we are alone. So that is a state of aloneness where we are completely full and blissful and not feeling miserable. Ekanta sthitihi. And then indriya uparamani, when all the sense organs, the eyes, the ears, the nose, the tongue, the feelings through the skin, and the other mind is also sense organ where it receives thoughts. All this is controlled, uparamani, it is withdrawn, hetuhu dhrumaschetasaha. All these become the cause for a steady mind. Samrodhe karanam, when all the intellect, the mind, the chitta or the memories, and the ahamkara, the I thought, all of these are quietened. And then there is shamena vilayam, with shama or absorption of the mind completely, not arising any desireful thoughts to come up. Shamena vilayam, everything gets absorbed completely. Yayat aham vasana, only the I thought is there. After that, aham vasana, the I thought, the I feeling is there. Tena ananda rasanubhutihi achala. When only that I thought is there, ananda rasa anubhuti. In sleep also, that I thought is there, but we are not conscious of it. In waking state, when we are conscious of that I thought alone, ananda rasanubhutihi achala, completely non-shaking joy the bliss of experience of joy. Achala means no movement. Brahmi sada yoginaha. That yogi experiences that Brahmasthiti where there is no movement. There is just that bliss. There is the experience, the knowledge of that Brahman and the existence as Brahman. Only that is there. Tasmat chitta nirodha eva satatam karyaha prayatnat munehi. Therefore, the Muni, with all efforts, should always work on quietening the mind. Vacham niyachatmanitam niyacham buddhau dhyam yachcha buddhi sakshini tam chapi purnatmani nirvikalpe vilapya shantim paramam bhajasva. So this is the process by which everything from outside folds within. Vacham niyacha atmani. Give up the speech. The speech is the outward movement of the mind. Quieten the mouth, close the mouth, and offer that all the thoughts that gets expressed through speech, niyacha atmani, into the I thought. Tam niyacha buddhau. Give that I thought into the intellect, which contains sattva guna, rajoguna, and tamoguna. Dhyam niyacha buddhi sakshini. Buddhau dhyam niyacha. And give this mind into the intellect, the I into the mind into the intellect, and the intellect into the witness of the intellect. There is that light of consciousness which is aware of the intellect. Offer the intellect into that light of consciousness. It is just like all these things that we say: intellect, mind, I thought, this chitta, and the sense thoughts. All these are something like smoke. They're all a little dark because they have matter in it. Just offer it into that sakshi, which is light. When the light absorbs all the smoke, all the darkness is gone and there is light alone. Buddhi sakshini, tam chapi purnatmani. Even that sakshi, even that witness, purna atmani nirvikalpe, where there are no thoughts in that complete self, in that supreme self. Offer the sakshi also. Sakshi means I am that witness, that feeling that I am watching this. I am observing the mind. I am observing the intellect. I am observing the ego. I am observing the thoughts. I am observing the breath. That I becomes a very steady, conscious presence. Absorb that also into that nirvikalpa purna atmani. That self which is the I in all, which has got no thoughts in it. Give it into that. Vilapya. After doing all this, what should we do? Shantim paramam bhajasva. Be quiet. Shanti means from the word shama. Shanta. Shanti. Shama means the mind is having no agitation. It is very quiet. Paramam bhajasva. Work on the bhajasva is serve the supreme I, supreme self. Deha pranendriya mano buddhyadibhir upadibhihi yair vrittehe samayogas tattat abhavosya yoginah. Deha prana indriya mano buddhi adibihi upadibihi. These are all the accoutrements or the limiting adjuncts for that Atman, around the Atman. This body, mind, intellect are all limitations. All these things, yair vrittehe samayogaha. Whatever activities of the body, activities of the sense organs, activities of the mind, activities of the intellect, everything, they have one work to do. Sama yogaha tattat abhave asya yoginaha. When everything is merged and given into that Supreme Self, the yogi also gets, when the yogi is meditating on all these things, he becomes that. He becomes the body, he becomes the mind, he becomes the intellect, he becomes the agitations. So it is very important to withdraw from all this. तन्निवृत्त्यामुने सम्यक् सर्वोपरमणं सुखं सन्दृश्यते सदानन्दः रसानुभव विप्लवः. तन्निवृत्त्या मुनेः, by withdrawing from all this, samyak sarva uparamanam sukham, everything is quietened down. When the witness, when the consciousness is removed from all these limitations such as the body, mind, intellect and other things, sarva uparamanam sukham, it gives complete joy. When the mind is absorbed only, we experience joy. We don't experience joy because of something. We experience joy because joy is only there to experience. Samdrishyate sada ananda rasa anubhava viplavaha. So the person, such a person who has withdrawn from everything in a quiet state of mind, is reveling in that state of meditation. Samdrishyate sada ananda rasa anubhava. He is seeing that experience, or he is rather experiencing that ananda rasa, the joy of bliss, the folds of bliss of that Brahman is being experienced by this individual when everything has been completely, when he has withdrawn from the whole world and absorbed everything into that ananda rasa and merging and becoming one with it. So what is the easy way to do samadhi? We will look into it tomorrow, Thursday. Om Sarvesham Swastir Bhavatu, Sarvesham Shantir Bhavatu, Sarvesham Purnam Bhavatu, Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavatu, Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha, Sarve Santu Niramayaha, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kaschit Dukkha Bhag Bhavet. Om Asatoma Sadgamaya Tamasorma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Boliye Shri Sadgurunath Maharaj ki Jai. Har Namah Parvati Pataye. Har Har Mahadeva. Hari Om.